Turn in your Bibles with me to Matthew chapter 5. Matthew chapter 5, if I can ask you to stand if you're physically able to do so, as we start reading from verse 21 through verse 30. You have heard that it was said to those of old, "You shall not murder." And whoever murders will be liable to judgment. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council. And whoever says, "You fool," will be liable to the hell of fire. So if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are going with him to court, lest your accuser hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the guard, and you be put in prison. Truly I say to you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny. You have heard that it was said, "You shall not commit adultery." But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body go into hell. Thank you. Please take your seats. Many churches or pastors and preachers, when they get to this section, especially on this subject, will kind of gloss over it. But hopefully you know me better by now. I won't do that. This is a subject that, and anytime you talk about anything or teach through or preach through anything in church of a sexual matter, sexual subject, it's glossed over. How many times? Now, I say this off the top of my head because I already know the answer. In your whole lifetime, how many studies have been done, expository sermons on the Song of Solomon? Right. Am I right? Okay. Usually, the Song of Solomon is studied in a classroom or something like that, never preached through. In an article printed in September 2011 on some research work done by the Barna Group on why young people disconnect themselves from the church after the age of 15. The name of the article is 6 Reasons Why Young Christians Leave Church. And the overall research concluded that nearly 3 out of every 5 young Christians, 59%, disconnect either permanently or for an extended period of time from the church after the age of 15. Reason number 4, let me read it to you. Young Christians' church experiences related to sexuality are often simplistic and judgmental. Teens and 20-something Christians are struggling with how to live meaningful lives in terms of sex and sexuality. One of the significant tensions for many young believers is how to live up to the church's expectations of chastity and sexual purity in this culture. And it's always been a problem with culture, but things have gotten worse. And I'm a child of the 60s and the 70s when all this sexual revolution stuff started to come around, and it was thrown in our faces back then. It was just unbelievable. Research indicates that most young Christians are as sexually active as their non-Christian peers, even though they may have more conservative attitudes on sex. Did you get that? 1/6, 17%, said that they have made mistakes and feel judged in church because of them. 60% of Americans believe that living together is morally acceptable. 59% believe that sexual fantasies are acceptable. Half of born-again believers feel this way too. 42% believe that having a sexual relationship with someone of the opposite sex other than their spouse is okay. Look at the text once again in verse 27. You can read it from your notes because I added some of the meanings in the words there for you. You have heard that it was said, "You shall not commit adultery." But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful, and the word lustful there means to desire, to long for, with lustful intent, has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, that means as a stumbling block, as an impediment that's in the way, tear it out and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members, which is body parts, than that your whole body go into hell. Now, there is a succession here in subjects that Jesus is teaching. And when we started going through this Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is just not plucking subjects out of the thin air and say, "Oh, I'm going to talk on this, and now I'm going to talk on this." No, there is a definite purpose in how these subjects line up. So here we go. And remember now, he's still teaching the Word of God compared to what these people have been taught concerning human tradition. So, if you're looking at your notes there, the first question is, why does Jesus go from the subject of anger, which is just what we studied the last couple weeks, to adultery? Well, here's the answer. Because everyone is a murderer and adulterer. Because everyone is a murderer and adulterer. Now, remember what Jesus was teaching before about murder? The Pharisees and the scribes and the rabbis they were teaching that they were basing their personal righteousness before God as to never committing the actual act. These people, the Pharisees and the scribes and the rabbis, they were very good at following the letter of the law. You shall not commit murder. And this is what they had been teaching the Jews for generations. Now it's a good thing not to murder somebody. Would we all agree with that? Yes. It's a good thing not to murder somebody. You end up in prison that way. And so that's what they were teaching these people for generations. And it's, okay, that's not a bad thing. But there's more to it. And Jesus gives them the illustration that we learned 2 weeks ago and then last week, of the illustration that someone who has so much anger in their heart that they're really not righteous at all. And when it comes to adultery, look at the society we live in. And I've shared with you many times, the majority of my counseling is marital counseling. Most of what I teach overseas, when I travel, when I teach, can't tell you how many pastors, teachers come up to me and talk about marriage problems and sexual problems like this. The way people think nowadays is that adultery can be seen as acceptable. You know why? Because they make it legitimate. They rationalize it. They rationalize it when it's done in the name of love. And every time I hear and I've told you about that when a newly engaged couple they come to me and ask me, would you marry us? I says, well, why do you want to get married? Oh, because we love each other. Well, that's nice, but that's not all of it. But our society rationalizes the sin of adultery in the name of love. And sadly, much of the church has embraced this unbiblical thinking too. You know why? They don't want to hold anybody accountable. You know why? Because it's in the name of love. And isn't that what God is all about? Right? Doesn't the Bible say God is love? Isn't that what the gospel is all about? For God so loved the world? But each one of us sitting here today, every one of us, you sitting, me standing, has murdered someone and has committed adultery. Jesus, once again, now remember, he's teaching these people, overwhelmingly Jewish audience, and he takes them once again from the physical to the spiritual. And the spiritual part is it's a matter of the heart. So why does he go from the subject of anger to adultery? Because everyone is a murderer and adulterer. Well, what were the people taught? Well, they were taught according to the 7th commandment, which is not a bad thing. The 10 commandments were given to Israel as the center of their religious laws and their civil laws. The first 4 commandments are given to the people as to their relationship to Jehovah. He was the one that brought them out of slavery, out of Egypt. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make yourself a carved image. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. The first 4. But then the other 6 are given to the Israelites on how they are to deal with one another and their relationships. Honor your father and your mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet anything that is your neighbor's. So you see the point? The first 4 is all about their relationship to God. The next 6 is all about how they are to relate to each other. So the people have been taught through generations according to the 7th commandment, which is a good thing. The 10 commandments are a good thing. Too bad too many in our country now think that they're not such a good thing. They even take them down within the courtrooms now. So the next thing that these people were being taught is that it was sin against marriage that would destroy the home. So they were being taught correctly according to the 7th commandment, and they were being taught correctly that it was a sin against marriage and would destroy the home. Because see, listen to this, the fundamental building block of society back then and even now is the sanctity of marriage and therefore the home. One of Satan's greatest accomplishments has been to deceive people into redefining what marriage truly is and what a family truly is. A true biblical family has a father, a mother, and children. Not 2 fathers. Not 2 mothers. Not 1 dad. Not 1 mom. But 2 parents with children. That is a true biblical family. And not that I'm some sort of martyr or some big shot or anything, but you know what? You won't hear that in many churches nowadays because they don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. They don't want to offend anyone, and neither do I. But the Word of God doesn't change. It still stands for truth. And when the sanctity of marriage and the home falls, society falls. Society will fail. You want to know why our society is failing and falling right into the gutter? Because of the breakdown of the American family. That's why. And that's why God put it in the 10 Commandments. Because family, the marriage and family, is important to God. So the people were being taught according to the 7th commandment. They were being taught, now remember, many of these people did not have their own personal copy of the law. So they had to go by what the Pharisees, the rabbis, and the scribes were teaching them. Well, in this part, they were being taught correctly. They were being taught according to the 7th commandment, and they were being taught that it was a sin against marriage and would destroy the home. But they were also being taught that it was known back then as the great sin, punishable by death. I put the reference in there for you, Deuteronomy 22:22. You want to know how serious God is about this sin? If a man is found lying with the wife of another man, both of them shall die. The man who lay with the woman and the woman. So you shall purge the evil from Israel. You see, the relationship, the marriage relationship should be a reflection of one's relationship with Jesus Christ. That's why adultery is considered to be so serious to God, punishable by death. Now, some of the ways that they would deal with it back then, some adulterous couples were tied up and thrown into the water. In Jesus' day, they were killed by stoning. And later on, they were strangled. I hope you have a real good picture now of how serious God takes it. How serious God is about marriage and the home. And how lackadaisical our society and how many Christians and how the church is now. So the third question is what is Jesus teaching here? Well, that adultery is not just external, but the internal lust in the heart. Let me just read. I just want to take you back to verse 17 in chapter 5. Just look at it with me. Remember Jesus saying this when we went through this part? Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish them, but to fulfill them. He didn't come to abolish what we know as the Old Testament, but He came to fulfill it. You see, the law said, you shall not murder. But then Jesus says, but I'm telling you this. There's more to it. There's more to it than the physical, external part of the law. And the fulfillment of that law is even if you're angry with a brother enough to call him insulting names, you are guilty of murder. See, what they got was, if you can say, the outside part of the law. And Jesus said, that's part of it. I came to fulfill it. So what does He do? He gives them the inside part. The spirit behind it. So then He says, you've also heard. I love this. He says, well, you heard this, and now you've also heard, you shall not commit adultery. But I tell you that the fulfillment of the law is that even if you intently gaze, and that's what the word means, to look intently, to gaze for the purpose of lusting, you are guilty of adultery. What He's saying there? Lust, watch this. Lust is adultery. Why? Because it comes from the heart. And we've all done it. Now, this is not all about what I call an oops moment. You know what an oops moment is? An oops moment is You're walking along, or you're in the grocery store, and you happen to walk by either the magazine rack, and oh, there it is, and there are just those times, or a billboard, or something like that, where it's not due to anything you've done. It's just, you know what? There are sometimes it appears right in front of your face. But what Jesus is talking about here is someone who intently looks and gazes. And you know what? All you have to do is go to the mall to see this. Especially during the summertime, when girls don't wear much. And as they walk through the mall, if you see a bunch of young men sitting there, and a girl walks by, you can just watch this. Watch. And I've got a wonderful wife who warns me. We could be walking along somewhere, and she'll notice something before I do, and she'll say, "Hon, don't look." I said, "What?" She said, "Don't look." Because, you know what I want to do? I want to look. She said, "Don't look." I said, "Really? Really?" I said, "Just a peek?" "No." Looking intently and gazing, I purposely choose to do that. You get the point? That's what Jesus is teaching here. When you intently and purposely do that. But there's some things that I wrote down for you that we can all think about our personal lives. How do I know if I'm struggling with lust? Well, for the guys, I just put several things down. Do I surf through TV channels looking for immodesty? I spelled that wrong in your notes. It should be immodesty. Do my eyes tend to look inappropriately at the bodies of women? Do I try to hide my sin via deletion maneuvers on my computer? Nothing will destroy. And nowadays, you can surf the net, you can surf the internet, and all that stuff, and you can get it up. You know what? Nothing will destroy a marriage and a relationship faster than the speed of the internet. For the women, do I read books or articles that stimulate wrong passions? As a pastor, I've had to deal with this. Wives and moms are coming to me that they were unhappy in their marriage, and they would read books, romance novels, for the wrong reason. Do I watch soap operas? What I call them is soft porn. What's a typical soap opera? This one's sleeping with this one, that one's sleeping with that one. Really? Or do I dress in a way that I know will attract inappropriate attention from men? Jesus says here, But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent, and ladies, this just doesn't mean men, okay, has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Well, the next question is, how does Jesus want me to deal with lust? Well, and here's the word. Causes you to sin, to stumble, and impediment. You know what the Greek word there? Scandalizo. What does that tell you? Scandal. Yep. Because he says here, if your right eye causes, the word causes there, some of you may have stumbling block or causes you to stumble or causes you to sin. That term is scandalizo. So how does Jesus want you to deal with it? Drastically. That's what he says. He's saying that we need to take drastic measures to the things that make us stumble. So drastically, he figuratively teaches, if you know that one eye that causes you to lust, get rid of it. And, oh, by the way, the same goes for the hand that gets you into trouble. Get rid of it. Purpose to break away from sinful influences. It means, you know what it means? It means not to flirt with any notion. You don't pamper it. You don't say it's all right. Oh, hey, Cheryl, can I just take a peek? No. Get rid of it. Don't do it. Don't go to places. I don't go to those. You know what? Thank the Lord. Don't go to those places. And I've already shared with you. We used to our family maybe at one time we thought about getting a season's pass to the Rock River Rapids in Derby. Because the kids like to swim. I ain't going. Now, does my sinful heart want to sit there among all those girls with practically nothing on? You betcha. But I don't want to go there. I don't. My sinful heart does. But don't go to those places. Or read things or watch things that cause you to stumble. Here, let me go back to verse 6 in chapter 5 here. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. And when I choose not to do those things, when I choose, just because I don't do the physical act, it doesn't make me righteous. But when I choose not to do those things, get rid of the things that make me stumble, it doesn't make me any more righteous. But I'll tell you what, it exposes a part of my heart that hungers and thirsts for righteousness. Do you see that? I put a question on the bottom of your notes. It's just for you. Am I overcoming lust on a daily basis? Are my eyes on Christ alone as the source of satisfaction? Let's pray. Father, you know the intent of my heart. You know the intent of everybody's heart here. And Lord, I just ask you to keep changing my heart. I thank you for all the changes that you've made. I ask that you would continue making them and molding me into your image, from my thoughts into my words into my deeds. And Lord, that is my prayer for each and every person here. We all need changing, all of our hearts. You know what we struggle with, Lord. And I pray these things in your name. Amen. And I pray these things in your name. Amen. And I pray these things in your name. Amen.